Is that what we do?
Right.
Is that what you do, Joe?
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Fingers?
My spirit fingers. I usually do this.
Uh-huh.
Bullshit.
I don't know. I don't know what to do. The sun is shining. This is
exactly.
weird.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's gonna be good because I got a whole day lined up here. This is just the start.
Me too. I have a recliner calling my name.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So sad to say that. Damn it. All right.
It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Myself, Adrian, and Joe are here to talk about whiskeys from around the world and how a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world. How are you guys doing, and how's your Saturday?
It's going real good so far. Joe's, I think it's pretty early for Joe.
Yeah, it's a little bit early. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, my time, which is early for a Saturday.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, and starting off the day right.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
Little
that
Irish
as well.
whiskey in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that. Gives you a little palate opener. Gives your blood vessels flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just talking as much shit as I can right now because I got nothing. I'm trying to do
Well, let's talk about St. Patrick's Day. Do you guys got plans for St. Patrick's Day? It's a Monday. It's happening on a Monday this year.
It's a Monday, but on Saturday we're supposed to meet up with Val and Jeff and having a little pre-St. Patrick's Day meetup.
Ooh,
there you go.
That sounds fun.
So I'll be making corned beef and cabbage, but I don't make it traditional. I make it into a stew.
Okay.
So it lasts longer, and I like the way it tastes. It doesn't get as dry sometimes if you just do it regular style. But then as for Monday, one of my favorite local Irish pub bands plays at a bar all day, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning till closing time. I want to go, but we'll see.
Yeah,
that's a long day.
That sounds like a very long day. Everybody gets drunk on my birthday, and I walk away. So
that's right. It is. It's Brian's birthday. How awful of me to not remember that.
That's fine.
I did know that.
Everybody forgets my birthday because they usually drink so much they forget it. So it's okay.
Oh well, maybe that's. I personally probably will not do a whole lot to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, other than maybe this interview that we're about to do. That might be a good celebration.
Oh, it is. And let's talk about stacking the board with an amazing company, right? And I'm trying to do this appropriately, and I'm doing this on medication right now, so I'm really surprised I even got that out. But Shane and Donald are some amazing individuals, but we have the pleasure of talking with Shane McCarthy from Two Stacks Irish. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, great. It's so awesome to be on with Bourbon with Friends, and talking all things Irish whiskey. It's 4 p.m. where I am. I'm just based in the north of Ireland. Anyone that's familiar with Ireland, around the Mourne Mountains area, County Down, so not too far from where Two Stacks is based. I'm just checking in here from a nice Saturday afternoon. We're slowly moving into springtime, and it's usually around St. Patrick's Day that we come out of the darkness of January and February and into the light of music and pub and celebrating all things Irish culture. So excited to actually be on and chat with you guys. And it's always a busy time of year for Irish whiskey brands and a lot of traveling and stuff. But this year and this weekend, it's quite nice actually to be at home and virtually touching base with some good friends and comrades across the water. So excited to be on with you guys today and, talk all things Irish whiskey, why we do what we do, why we drink Irish whiskey at the weekend, at St. Patrick's Day, all year round most of the time, But it's good to be on and chatting to you guys, and I was enjoying some of the conversation before I come on. Joe's definitely my type of guy, on a Monday going to the local pub and stacking up with a Guinness on St. Patrick's Day, listening to the live music all day, and then realizing it's like 10 p.m. and probably should have went home 5 hours ago, but you're still there.
Yep. Those are good times.
Yeah, they are. And that's it. That's what most of it's about, right? Just good times.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So what we usually do is we just ask could you give us a little bit of background on you and Donal and how you guys got started, and maybe a little bit about why, and also on your website it says that transparency, creativity, and innovation are part of what shaped what you have going on, and so try to incorporate that a little bit too if you can.
Yeah, and I think where we stand, and particularly even where I stand myself, a lot of time when you're in the kind of brand world, and there's a lot of new brands that have come out of Ireland the last 5 years, it's so easy to throw around buzzwords and we're this, we're that, and I think first and foremost we're all about incredible Irish whiskey. And so Two Stacks was founded by three good friends, myself, Donal, and Liam, about 5 years ago now. We've been in the industry 10 years. I actually spent some time in New York, and previously was in New Zealand and Australia, and I suppose taking in the wonderful cultural identities of all these other countries. And when I come back home, I had an idea that I put forward to Liam and Donal. Liam, we both went to college together, childhood friends, and the idea was really to bring a true taste of Ireland to the rest of the world. It was something that we felt strongly perhaps wasn't being identified authentically from Ireland. We're incredibly good at creating big global brands like Guinness and Bailey's and Jameson and Bushmills, but there's so many more layers to the scope and options that are available, unless you maybe come to Ireland, but becoming available around the world. So we decided that we would set up, Donal himself is third generation Irish bar owner. Donal and I actually done a stint in hospitality in the bar industry as well in New York. So, a lot of our passion and even, why we still do what we do today so passionately comes back to that same ethos, and it's just authenticity. And I know it's, as I say, sometimes a buzzword, but for us it's what we kind of bleed. And we're still a fully independent company. We've been set up on the back of our own savings, and we haven't in any way taken on big commercial funding. We've just kind of dug deep and tried to create some really innovative and creative. I suppose as well, when you look at whiskey, it's almost 700 years old, right? I think it technically it was 700 years last year when it was distillation was first mentioned in the Red Book of Ossory here in Kilkenny in Ireland. So that's a long time of creating one category. So a lot of the time, when we look at the blank canvas of, well, what whiskey are you going to create, or what are you going to bring out to market? You don't necessarily want to bring sand to the beach. And for us, Two Stacks is really all about pushing them boundaries. And when we get into the nitty gritty, I hope you'll understand, the process that drove us to do what we do. Everything from the complex blends to the creative vessels that we put our whiskey products into, and also, I suppose, some of the transparency element that really hones in again to the authenticity. And the transparency is really about a sense of identity. So anytime you pick up any of the products of Two Stacks, we will try and put as much information on the bottle as legally possible. So we'll tell you, where the distillate's from, the exact breakdown of the blend, the cask that made up the blend. Everything is, non-chill filtered and no e-caramel coloring. You'd be surprised the amount of kind of mass-produced whiskies that do use these. And I think that's where the contrast comes in with quality and profile of the whiskey. So when it comes down to the Two Stacks brand, a lot of that transparency and authenticity is just natural. It's kind of like you look at whenever food products or products went into this. Oh, it's organic. All these things used to naturally just be natural, right? And we just became a little bit more processed whenever we started to mass produce food and beverage around the world. So with the Two Stacks brands, we try and push out that natural identity. And I suppose a little more in the background, we do work with maybe 15 or 16 of the distilleries across the island. We are one of 3 bonders. For anyone that isn't familiar with what a bonder is, here in Ireland, it's this technically it's a warehouse before excise duty is given to the governments. So it allows us to bring in a lot of different distillates under the one roof and focus on the art of the blend. So we've lots of different DNAs from across the island. We do go in as well and commission mash bills with distilleries. So we'll go in and we have the trust of being able to take over the distillery and create. And when we do these products, we try and do them once a year. We tend to hone in and go back to the history of that region and look at heritage mash bills that maybe have been lost over time. And revive it. So we'll recreate mixed heritage pot still mash bill. We'll purchase all of that distillate. We'll provide the experimental casks to the distillery, and then we'll bring them all back to our bond. So that's some of the kind of varied projects that we're involved in, maybe more in the kind of geeky side of whiskey. But the more kind of core products is all about our signature 5-part blend. And when we look at that product, a lot of what's in it it's maybe debunk is a harsh word, but for us, it's really to debunk some of the myths that fall around Irish whiskey. People think that Irish whiskey is triple distilled, is smooth, is non-peated. It's all of these things and always has been. It's just that narrative has been pushed by some of the big brands for a couple of decades. And unfortunately, it's created an identity of the category, which is so far.
Hide a name really quick. So
we love all these brands. They've kept the category relevant. But when we look at the 5-part blend, it's got peated distillate in there. It's got double distilled distillate in there. It uses 3 different cask types. It also uses triple distilled. And it was really to showcase the world that we aren't this, one kind of stop with
like a one-show pony here.
Exactly, Joey. One-show pony. And even you look at the history in the islands, and we naturally would have had peated whiskey. All of our distilleries, when Irish whiskey was at its pinnacle, when we were at our prime, and 50 to 60% of brown spirits sold around the world was Irish whiskey, it was naturally peated. We fuel the distilleries with turf peat. So the floor malting, it was all naturally. You'll even be surprised if you look at some of them old names that did lay down peated whiskey at one time. They just don't tell you in their current marketing. So for us, I think we should be championing that. We should be re-owning that revival. There is a renaissance happening here in the island of Ireland. We went from 2 or 3 big brands and distilleries to over 50 operating distilleries now. So it's a very exciting time. And especially when you're in the bonding and blending space, I feel it's still very much at its infancy, because these new distilleries are anywhere between 1 to 10 years of age. And it does take time to make quality distillate. So, when you're playing in the secondary market, you really are only getting to play about with a lot of these distillates, and it's just getting better and better. And more exciting distilleries are coming on the market. So that's where I feel like it's where we certainly stand apart. But I also feel if someone is coming into the whiskey category, why they should be following Irish whiskey. Here's a big reason why as well. If you reach out to any of the brands, you're going to be speaking to the founders. If you look at some of the big commercial brands of maybe Scotch and bourbon, sometimes they're all owned by a large PLC. Sometimes the majority of these big brands are, and you're going to be talking to a marketing manager or a social media agency. So I think if you're starting on the journey of following Irish whiskey, it is perfect timing, because you're going to directly follow the people and the passion behind these brands, and you're going to be speaking to them directly. So I've kind of picked that up over the years when I went to trade festivals and we meet people from around the world. They really enjoy having that direct relationship, because they come on the journey with you. They realize how hard it is in business, how hard it is to create a following. But for us, it's about creating a community the same way you guys, have done it with Bourbon with Friends. You're creating a community of interest, of education, of advocacy, and even having Two Stacks on today, hopefully, is a story that a handful of your listeners have never heard of before, and has maybe excited them for information that they didn't know before today.
Yeah, so I kind of want to go back on what you talked about, your bonding and blending process, but also you seem to be bringing back that tradition. That tradition was huge in the 1800s, 1900s of bonding and blending. So is that heritage of doing that in your country, is that really important to you? Is that why you brought it back? And do you think that is helping you create more exciting expressions of what Ireland can offer to the world?
100%. Yeah. I think the history and heritage to a degree is being re-owned by the new generation coming through. If you maybe compared and looked at the different generations, maybe in a different age scope of 50 years, the new generation are certainly re-owning their own sense of identity that maybe isn't this fiddly-dee plastic patty, leprechauns and shamrocks. Even though we do we do enjoy it and we do lean in and we still love our own cultural identity, I feel there's will you realize that we lost some of this because of prohibition, because of world wars, because of trade wars, because of our own ignorance to the coffee still, and that we didn't embrace the blend because we thought that the pot stills were so superior to any other way of making whiskey, and we still do to this day. We champion the single pot still. It's a very much a slower process and way of doing it. But when you look at the heritage of the bonder and the grocer, to me, my understanding and my personal way of enjoying the journey, and the reason that we're in this space is, I look at the co-founder Donald. His family were actually bonders, 200 plus years ago, but they would have brought in barrels of Guinness and bottled it at the pub. So every local village, a lot of the time you're kind of looking at the social makeup of the villages across the island, and they all had a lot of the times there was illicit stilling happening and they were making parching. But a lot of that, is the true identity of whiskey. People here will sometimes call it whiskey's mother because it predates whiskey. Parching was outlawed more so than whiskey. It was double the taxation by King James. So we actually found that parching was so superior and beautiful when it was done correctly. It was family recipes, and when someone passed away, you would actually celebrate the body by bringing the little beautiful nip of parching. And if you're going to do something really different this St. Patrick's Day with some friends, you should try and find some parching and you should enjoy it. It's just something a little bit different, but I know that our importers bring in Cologne parching. Cologne Distillery is also part of the family. It's a separate brand, but it was also co-founded by myself and Liam. So that focuses all on the distillation process. So again, it does overlap slightly, but we very much play in the bonding and blending space. And coming back to the question, Joe, it really does for us. It's about retelling that story and that identity of once was, because it is a big part of our history, and it shouldn't just be written out of history. It should not only retold, but we've moved on a lot with technology and innovation. So with Two Stacks, you'll notice in our logo it's quite abstract and contemporary. So to give you a background, the Two Stacks logo, yeah, that's it. There's actually a third star, which is the Polaris star when you look upwards and outwards, and it's very much about us writing our own chapter in Irish whiskey, looking upwards and onwards. But the two strokes actually represent what once was the two biggest chimney stacks on the island of Ireland, and that was Old Dundalk Distillery. They were a powerhouse whenever Irish whiskey was at its prime, and it's a nice way to lean in the once was, but not retell their story. We're very much telling our own story and our own identity, because brand is very much person, and we are the people behind it. So yeah, that to us is an important part of looking at them traditions. But okay, how can we push it a little bit further? How can we do things a little bit differently? And that's very much what you're going to get when you find the two stacks on shelf.
And doing things differently, I'm gonna piggyback on that. And you have the dram in a can. I'm gonna open mine. Yeah, nice. I've never had whiskey out of a can. This would be a first. I want to tell you, Shane, I haven't tried. I've not had a lot of Irish whiskey, so anything that you would like. There's probably a lot of people that'll be listening, maybe that haven't tried a lot of Irish whiskey like myself. So anything that you would like to impart, huh?
Yeah, I was going to say, or what they've tried has probably been the big brand, the big J brand, or the big A brand.
That's it. And even with some of the bigger brands, they did try to be very accessible, and sometimes you're, oh well, that's smooth or that's easy to drink, but with the dram in a can, sláinte, guys.
Sláinte.
The reason that we put this beautiful.
This is wild. This is wild.
It's
whiskey.
It's all about making whiskey approachable as well, right? It shouldn't be this out of reach category for the masses. The 5-part plan. We won a World Whiskey Award, but we looked at kind of price psychology, and being a new brand, sometimes people mightn't want to pay $40 for a bottle, but they definitely won't think too hard about spending $5 on 100 mils of a can. And it's become an uber success for the brand. We've sold millions of units. And
these are nice. This is nice.
Organically, it's just like, oh, have you ever tried Irish whiskey? Try this. And it's either a Sherman whiskey, or someone tries it and then they have it with their Irish coffee, or they have it with a cocktail, or they have it on the rocks. So that's really where the whole idea of the can come into play. I think we were the first to ever do it globally, first mover in the space back in 2021. And it's just organically taken off around the world. Fantastic.
So about the can, I mean, some whiskey nerds, a purist, are like, are we going to get flavor from the aluminum?
Are we going to get flavor? Are we going to get thin? And we do get asked this. And what I love doing, Joe, is especially at trade shows, I'll say, I tell you what, and I take the can and I take the bottle and I pour them into a glass side by side, or I tell them to turn around, and then I present it to them. And I say, okay, you tell me the difference. Is there any difference? 99.9%. They either get it wrong, or they're like, actually, there's no difference. And I think that's all perception as well. And especially even with the kind of boom of the craft beer movement, beer became a lot more accessible in fresh cans, and people weren't as taken back by, sipping out of a can. But also, big soda commercial companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, for decades, it's all about the freshness of a can, right? And so I think with the whiskey in a can, apart from maybe, having to have them discussions with whiskey purists that maybe have that perception, the majority are like, this is really awesome. And why has no one done this before?
Awesome.
It's pretty incredible. And as a woman, I have a lot of friends who are like, I don't know how you drink that stuff. And this, like you said, would be entry level, or more. Maybe they would be more open to trying something like this as opposed to seeing it like this.
That's it. Yeah. To me, it's definitely a nice way of sharing the experience with friends, because whiskey is majority of the time about the company you're with, or sharing it with a couple of good friends.
Absolutely.
So the cans have been fantastic, but first and foremost, we do present it in bottle, and bottles are all around the world as well. And we put a lot of time and effort into the beautiful embossed bottle that I think you guys also have.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Very nice.
They're also
beautiful bottle.
We were one of the first brands to use 100% recycled glass, and
really
all natural cork. So there is definitely an ethos that I should have mentioned as well. The bonded warehouses all run off solar panel and all fully electric vehicles. So there's definitely just a natural consciousness there of just being quite sustainable about everything that we do.
Well, Shane, now you're just getting too fancy, all electric and making sure that everything's sustainable. How the hell are you doing that?
And this is it, Brian. I think there's certainly a pride of if we can do it, then certainly the guys with big bank accounts.
Yeah, I mean, especially since you guys are under clouds for what 90% of the year. How are you even powering?
I know it's interesting. UV still makes its way through every day, but yeah, it's definitely a nice way to do things. And our maturation warehouse is 8,000 square foot with just covered in solar panels.
That's amazing.
So while we're tasting this and still talking about this, I had some questions when you were talking earlier about this is a blend, but you started talking about like what makes Irish whiskey, and I did some reading so that I could understand a little bit more. And it's funny because you mentioned that peating the whiskey is something that is part of Irish history. But in my book, it says not very many Irish whiskey. There aren't very many peated Irish whiskeys, but there is in this, and you can taste it. You can taste the peat in it. So can you, between that and you talked about the double distilling, are there specific certain types of distilling or peating? Are there things like let's say three main things like that you would say make an Irish whiskey or should be part of an Irish whiskey?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a great question that every brand should ask itself. I think for Irish whiskey, it isn't pigeonholed to that one identity, and that leans into the history that we have. We make great single malt, but we also make great single pot still, and we also make great single grain, and we can be each of these categories. So I think when a brand looks at it and sets out, you almost need to look at it like a cookbook. We're using natural grains here, so it's what flavor profiles do you want to put in. With double distillation, you just get beautiful fruity esters, so you're going to get that.
Okay.
If you're adding it into your blends, and then with peated, you'll notice that there's just 2% peat. Peat can sometimes be like a Marmite. It can, be a yeah or nay. So the reason we just use 2%, we find it really, really nice for the finish of the whiskey. So the 2% is purposely put in there just to help with the length of that finish, so it doesn't taste like a young whiskey. We are purposely a non-age statement on our core brands, but if people ask, the whiskeys are anywhere between 4 and 7 years of age. So in no way super youthful, but very particular on the components that are in there. And then even with the grain, so 80% of that blend is technically single grain, and 40% of it is put into virgin oak and 40% into bourbon. The virgin oak gives it that beautiful natural color, even as a younger age. And that's the reason that we have 40% virgin oak in there. It's all natural color. And but again, it's like putting together the recipe to perfect something that we thought would be really nice and different and unique for the category of Irish whiskey, and to showcase that you can bring these elements together and give a really interesting profile of Irish whiskey that is probably, to me, one of the more pure identities of Irish whiskey. I think it represents everything that we are. And if you're to say, what is Irish whiskey or what should be in, I think 100% it's the people. If you're going into the brand, understand the people behind it.
I love that.
Yes. So let's get into a little bit of tasting, guys. I know Brian can't enjoy it, he did have it earlier. Before surgery, he did try it. And me and Adrian were actually on we have a little social group on Instagram, and we partake in some pours. So we
did last night. We were drinking some two stacks.
Yeah, actually, Martin, the other host, who was supposed to be on, but he had a little issue this morning. Yeah. We all three of us opened it for the first time last night. So and then so let's hear you, Adrian. What do you think about this? What are you getting off of it?
I had a very we talked with Marshall. We were talking about nosing, and at first I got this very citrusy, kind of astringent on the nose, and he mentioned opening the mouth a little bit to let it go to the back of the palate. So then it was kind of smoothed out after that. I'm horrible at notes, Joe.
No, it's just whatever comes to your head. I mean, for me,
right?
For me, the nose for me is it's a little fruity. I'm very peat sensitive, so I could smell that peat
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but on the palate, it's like an unsalted butter. It's just
Yeah, I love
butter.
that. Love that description, Joe. It's and
That's great.
when we're doing tastings, it is also subjective, and I
Yeah.
don't try and force that kind of you should taste this because our palates are so
everyone
very,
has different experiences. Like you probably won't know some of our cuisine over here, like we don't know some of yours over there.
right.
So it's all based on your things. But so I had my first pour before dinner, then I had a pour after dinner, and my dinner was a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
After that spicy dinner, this thing was like a fruit bomb. Like it opened up.
And that's just the double distillation coming through there. I think that them nice fruity esters like good cooking, a lot of the flavor holds in the oils of the distillate. And we have the mantra always up at 2 stacks of good distillate in, good distillate out. And I know there has been a bit of a narrative for a long time that sometimes casks are 60 or 70% of the character flavor. I, to a degree, would disagree with that in a big way. I feel that the natural distillate actually carries the majority of the flavor profile, and I've seen it time and time again. I've used bad distillate. I've tried to recharge it and make it a better whiskey as a whole. But honestly, I find in the true identity of poaching and mixed mash bills, even like the bourbon world, the big oily distillates I find are the most powerfully flavored and the most unique and complex and meaty and chewy. And that's what you get with big, like complex single pot stills here in the island of Ireland. And to me, that's a whole exciting category in itself. Yes, we do grain and malt, but single pot stills. So, I sometimes, I won't necessarily argue back that it isn't, but I find it hard to, I think, absorb that 70% of a whole whiskey comes out of just the cask. I find that it's very much how the distillate is made, and if it's great distillate, you're going to get a great whiskey.
Well, that's the foundation, right? Like, if you don't have a good foundation, what do you got, right?
Yeah, and it's just interesting that some people and brands have peddled that narrative, because it's like, well, you're saying that 30%, so you don't really care about how the distillate, and so much effort goes in and so much cost to making the distillate. Yes, you can maybe make it quite cheaply, but it's definitely to me some of the best whiskeys I've ever tried is all about distillate forward and really attention driven into the distillate and not the cask selection.
Oh, 100%. I think everything that you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. I want to get back into a few more of these tasting notes. Because Adrian, I want to know what you're getting off the palate. Same with you, Joe. I got some stuff I wrote down, but I want to see what you guys have first, and then go off of what I wrote down about a week ago from this.
I feel like it has a really nice finish, like a nice warm finish. Let me take another taste here.
Yeah, like I said, the nose for me, like I'm heat sensitive, I get that right away. But it's buttery, creamy, slight fruit, but not a sweet fruit.
I agree. I was kind of trying to put my finger on the fruit, but it's not a super sweet fruit. It's more of
I actually wrote down light apple,
like a kiwi, maybe.
Light apple.
Yeah, maybe it's like a pear.
Yeah.
And like the finish does have a little hint of spice. There's like lingering on the mid palate on my tongue. It's just sitting there.
Yeah, like right there. Yeah. I think that tends to maltiness for me. I mean, but that's what this is, right? It's a malt. I'll be honest with you, Shane. I'm not a huge single malt gal. That I'm getting there. I'm working on it.
Just
this is bourbon with friends.
I'm not a Scotch guy, but
I think there's a lot of overlap with bourbon and Irish whiskey, and obviously there's a lot of history there between the two nations. So everything that you're saying is, I think we were purposely trying to elevate a lot of them profiles, especially the spice that you mentioned at the end. the quintessential flavor profile of a single pot still is the spicy element, which comes from the unmalted barley. So yeah, I definitely would have to agree with that. And then
it's nice.
And the pear and the floral, what Brian is saying there, that was all kind of the different elements. So it's pretty great that you're able to pick that apart, because it is quite a complex blend. So it does take time with it to kind of sit with it and kind of let it open up and play around on the palate. But for us, it was one of the first blends that we come up with. We spent about 12 months dissecting and going through different profiles to land on this one. So we definitely are, to a degree, peat heads. We do like playing around with peat. So I don't know if when you say, Joe, that you're adverse to peat, or maybe you're sensitive to it.
I'm adverse to it, but I'm getting into it. We all know this person. He lives in Texas. He's into Scotch huge. He sent me like 15 samples of peated whiskey. Wow. And I've had those samples for over 2 years.
Oh, right.
Oh.
But I'm finally getting into it. I had a Kilkerran the other night. Kilkerran 8-year cast strength. After I got past that, I was dosing it for 10 minutes, got that peat past my senses, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good.
Yeah. I haven't had a lot of peat. I haven't had a lot of peated stuff, but what I have had, I'm not mad about. So I just need to keep branching out.
We especially in the US, there's only small elements. We use, we don't go heavy into the peat. We just love to experiment and use it in different ways. But yeah, when you said how many samples you got, Joe, I hope they sent you, like, they nearly should have said, okay, start with super light peat, and then make fall in, like, here's a load of real heavy.
No, I have some Ardbeg in there. I have some SMWS. I have
he's got some pretty high peat stuff.
Yeah,
I like it.
Peat Monster, all this.
Peat Monster is pretty strong, and I've went through a lot of them myself, different profiles of peat.
But I'm getting past that now, and I'm starting to enjoy the scotches now. So
and they do definitely do way more ranges of peat than Irish whiskey. So when you're hearing or reading that there's not many Irish whiskeys, it's true. There is more and more coming out, but I don't think in any way that Irish whiskey isn't peated. It just isn't predominantly peated. It's probably has a lighter profile sometimes, and uses different variations than just heavy peat. But there are certainly some of the newer distillers that are like all peat. So don't be surprised to see more of it come out. Peated pot still is actually a really interesting new category. Not new, but it's
I was gonna say, that's not new. That's been around for a long time.
It's been around the longest. So I had to stop myself in my path, because it hasn't been around for
it's getting a resurgence. It's resurging.
So, it's kind of lost.
So then a lot of the heritage mash bills that we would do would actually be a style of peated pot still, or else single pot still with big sherry finish. But you can just get a lot of big viscosity in the distillate when you play around with them heavy mash bills, and then it can be really nice. So even similar to this 5-part blend, adding in the different distillates really enhances the overall tasting experience.
All right, Shane. So this is the part of our little show here where we like to break it up. We like to ask a question, and this question stems from when these hosts took it over. Adrian was sitting in her office, and they were getting ready to record, and a flying squirrel jumped off the tree and hit her window, and she was like, "What the?" Actually, that's not true. I mean, we don't know. We told so many lies about this story. We don't know what it is. So what we do like to ask a squirrel question.
Yeah.
And
who's asking?
We'll let Brian ask. He hasn't asked in a while.
I was saying, I think it's somebody else. I asked last week.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Oh God, it's my turn, and I have to read this on meds. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Magnify. All right, so Shane, this is going to be the question that someone wrote for you.
Okay.
You walk into a pub in Ireland and notice a squirrel. What type of Irish mischief would it get into, and why in a pub?
Oh, it could be good mischief.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either.
Yeah, I think where my head goes, it would definitely jump onto the back shelves and go to the top shelf whiskeys and start cracking it open and pouring it out for everyone behind the bar. And especially going after the big expensive ones, the popping them, pouring them, and then sitting there getting drunk with the pub. That's what my score would do.
Nice. Yeah. So we put an Irish Mischief in there because that's stated on your website, I believe. And so is that like an ethos of your company kind of way, or is something you guys want to?
No, I just think with us, we, whiskey, and it's funny, I was doing a couple of trainings and master classes this week, and I really come back to, not taking yourself too seriously. Whiskey is about having fun as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are geeks at heart, and we've been doing this a long time, but yeah, definitely the kind of element of having fun together and not taking it too seriously. Yes, we love to make great product and bring people on the journey with us. But yeah, I think sometimes, as I kind of mentioned previously, we like to make it as approachable as possible and bring everyone into the community. So yeah, I just think having a little fun together and just being experimental and being open and passionate just hopefully creates this natural persona of who we are. We don't really put any smoke and mirrors up that we are trying to be anything that we're not. So yeah, for us, that level of, if you want to say mischief, is really just about having fun and nice. A good dram with friends.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, that's probably the best. Adrian, there's a specific question I think would be fun for you to ask. So.
Oh, okay. So do you have anything like that will be coming up that you got coming out that you want to talk about? Or anything around new expressions that you currently have or may be coming that you'd like to share?
Or collaborations with other companies.
Oh, yeah. There's something too.
Yeah, well, I could speak for ours, so I just really need to refine this because if you go on a deep dive with Two Stacks and even on our social media, you'll see, I think we've released over 100 different products in like this short time that we've been around. So I'll try and keep this US specific. We do have some experimental stuff in market. So you might see some super limited releases, which are like our fruit brandy finishes. So we've like taken our complex blend and we've done like apricot brandy finish casks. Nice. And blackberry brandy finished casks and stuff like that, which we were one of the first companies to really push that stone fruit profile into a whiskey. And it got a huge reception. We just re-released it in Ireland last week as a large batch. But I also don't think that we can not talk about our double Irish cream liqueur. We do actually make, it's got a bit of a cult following, especially in the whiskey community. But we make, a lot of people describe it as, I won't say the brand, but something on steroids. It's a better.
I think we all know what you're talking. We all know what you're talking about. It's all good.
It's a really nice double Irish cream, and the big differential is we use 8 times more premium Irish whiskey than the market standard. So if you ever get the Irish cream, we did put it into a can for the first time ever last year. We're the first to ever do Irish cream in a can. Nice. But you will see our bottles in market, and if you look at the back of the bottle, you'll see that it's the same 5-part blend that I just spoke about, and we actually use the cask strength version, which is like 64% or 128 proof.
Yeah, I need to find that one.
So
I was going to say, I got to look for this.
it's beautiful, beautiful, decadent chocolate coffee. It is just everything and more. So if you do come across or find this very elegant black and gold bottle, the brand is also getting huge recognition for that product as well. And it leans in nicely because it is another protected category here in Ireland. So for us, it was like, how do we take this category and elevate it to where we think is the highest point? So we spent a lot of time dissecting and creating a recipe that we think has blown the market away, and it has become really successful. So yeah, that and collaboration wise, for us, the big projects are really the blending of lots of the new distilleries that we work with. So if you keep an eye out on the social media, you might hear a project called Pillars of Creation. And that actually hones in on the James Webb telescope, if anyone follows us.
Yeah, okay.
And it's the beautiful Pillars of Creation when you look upwards and outwards. And it's really about the new chapter of Irish whiskey. So what we started to do, and we released the 2024 vintage last year, is take the oldest independent distillates. And so when I say that, independent distillates is not the oldest on the island. And we blended them together. So, you know, everything from Dingle Distillery in the south of Ireland to Ecklinville Distillery in the north, to Buan Distillery in the centre, outside of Dublin. So we've taken and we've not just cherry picked them, you know, we purposely brought the different bodies and distillates together, and we created these super one-off projects. So that is very much about rising tides. I think we all move together, and you know, for us, I hope Two Stacks can help in a big way do that, because we sit in quite a nice position to bring all these distilleries together and to actually focus on the art of the blend. So bringing these new exciting DNAs into one bottle can be super interesting. And that probably is what excites me the most of what's coming next. Pillars of Creation. We've got the next one coming out in the middle of the year, but certainly around the United States, you'll find, you know, our signature blend, our Irish cream, and hopefully some Dramaticans popping up. I've just seen a couple of tags where I think the first activations have happened with whiskey fridges. So you might even see some whiskey fridges with Two Stacks. And you literally just take it where it's a chilled can. So rather than even putting it on the rocks, it's just this beautiful chilled can out of the fridge. And it's a beautiful drinking experience. So our distributor started rolling out these really cool whiskey fridges across the United States, which is pretty awesome.
That's cool. So talking about your, you know, how you collaborate and stuff like that, I'm looking at your site right now, the Smoke and Mirrors Peated Stout. That just like intrigues me the most. But I want to ask you first, is that stout an Irish stout, or is it somewhere else? Have you looked into bringing barrels from the US, because we have a huge craft beer market here, and they're always sharing barrels. So have you thought about that?
Yeah, for us, we actually work with the lovely Farmhouse Brewery in Ireland, and it hones in on imperial Irish stouts. So a lot of, I think when we're trying to do something within a product, we'll try and hone in on the DNA from the island of Ireland. So the Smoke and Mirrors is 60% of that malt is aged in these beautiful Farmhouse stout casks, imperial stout casks, and then it's full circle. We give the cask back to the brewery, and they put their stout in. So they actually do a lovely whiskey aged stout. So it's a nice full circle project. But yeah, that was well done finding that one. That's probably our heaviest peated. So it's one that has been around for a couple of years and has a nice following of people that love peat. But what you get with it is this incredible big chocolate coffee note from the imperial stout. So it's a whole different peated drinking experience. It's really soft peat, but really chocolate forward and coconut or coffee, sorry. And that's the Smoke and Mirrors project. It was really about collaborating with local Irish breweries and bringing them into the whiskey community and vice versa. A little bit, I suppose, Jameson done Castmates, which is pretty cool. Castmates was all about working with craft breweries in the island of Ireland.
Well, Shane, I think it's come to this point where we always ask you guys, the people behind the scenes, their favorite whiskey or spirits memory that they have. This could be from a childhood. This could be from current times. This could be someone else that you shared a drink with. But what is your favorite memory of a spirit you had sharing it with someone else?
There's so many. I would love to ask you guys that question as well, but it sounds like you've had some great journeys with whiskey. But for me, it's quite an easy answer. It's when we cracked cask number 1 at Cologne Distillery, which was a heritage peated pot still, and it was close to a 4-year-old. It drank like a 24-year-old. it absolutely blew the socks off of everyone that was present in that cast room at the time. You'll see them on whiskey auction websites for thousands of pounds now, but this is a whiskey distillery that punches way above its weight. As I said, it's a whole story in itself. It has started trickling into the USA, but for me, that's I'll never forget that. And obviously, the founders kept some of them bottles. I have some in my attic here at the house. I only crack them at very, very special moments when a good friend is coming to visit, and we'll just share a glass each, but we'll sit with it for at least an hour, and that's definitely one of my favorite whiskey drinking experiences of all time, because it was such a moment of releasing your first ever cask from the distillery, but also seeing the reaction afterwards then of everyone in the room, and then also the reaction of the whole whiskey community when they got to buy. It went into a ballot, and there's a huge following and love for that distillery, but that was probably my favorite.
That's
awesome.
amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a good time. And I don't know if you guys have been to Ireland or ever planning coming over.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, I was supposed to be there in 2020. I was going to go there for the Notre Dame Air Force football game in Dublin.
It's become really big now. It's getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, but then COVID happened and I couldn't go.
So, yeah, now you got to.
I do have a passport. I could go. I just haven't.
I'll be out. I'll probably be out there next year, Shane, for sure. I got to recover first, but.
All right, Brian. Well, make sure you hit me up an email, because we love the host, especially guys like yourself that just seem incredibly passionate, like we are in the industry. And if you're coming over this far, we'd love to show you around and catch a few drams. And a lot of the time it's not even about the drams. It's actually about the whole area and the food experience as much as the beverage experience. So we definitely love to host when visitors come. So do look us up if you make a trip back next year.
Well, 100%. And then if you guys ever come to Colorado, come to Vail and I'll show you around the mountains.
Yeah, well, I think Donald, he was in Denver last year, and he done a couple of, a couple of club tastings, and I think the cans have made their way up the mountains to the ski slopes. So it's starting to get a nice footprint there. So yeah, vice versa.
Be perfect for skiing. Dramming a can on your skis? Come on.
I'm telling you, the amount of people I see drinking this and then falling over is great.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe that's not the best, but at least you're not carrying. At least you're not carrying glass around. That's all.
Exactly. Maybe at the end of the day, after a couple of good runs in the slope, but yeah, it's definitely a nice mini flask when you're out and out.
Yeah.
It's a great warmer. I can tell you that. I've done it a couple of times where I've had one of these and chugged it and then went down. And I felt great. So
love it.
Well, Jane, we appreciate you coming on, talking about Two Stacks, not only that, but Cologne Distillery as well, and giving us the backstory of Irish whiskey in general and sharing your well-being and everything that you do. So it's exciting to hear it. It's exciting to see where you guys are going. And it's even more exciting to see how you guys are going to explode around the U.S. coming here shortly. So
thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. Well, no matter where you're at in the world, day or night, remember, a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world. Cheers, y'all.
Sláinte.
Cheers. Sláinte.
Cheers.
All right, guys, I want to thank our sponsor, 10th Mountain Whiskey. You can find them on all social media platforms, as well as 10thwhiskey.com. You can use the code BWF15 for a 15% discount. That's pretty cool. Get some money off. Buy your friends something. Buy your family something. If your friends like whiskey, if your family likes whiskey, you can buy them that. But if they don't, you can buy them a hat. We'd love for you to go there and check them out and buy their products. You can also find them in 42 different states through online distribution, as well as 30 states across the country through regular retail distribution, guys. That's pretty cool. And it's growing because, well, no, the distribution is growing. We're not getting more states. So basically, if you do have any questions, you can reach out to 10thwhiskey.com. They'll be happy to answer anything that you may have. And of course, we thank 10th Mountain Whiskey for being our sponsor on the podcast.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at BWF Podcast. Thanks for listening.